Hook asterisk asterisk, he just wanted abs. He didn't expect discipline, pain, and a version of himself he'd be proud to meet in the mirror. Asterisk it started with frustration, that quiet kind that creeps in when the shirt doesn't fit right anymore, when the mirror becomes something to avoid. Every morning, he'd stand there for a second too long, staring at the soft curve where strength used to live. It wasn't vanity. It was a promise broken to himself. Months of saying, "I'll start tomorrow," had turned into years. And this morning, the weight of that hit harder than the reflection itself. He took a deep breath and pressed his palms against the sink, the faint sound of running water filling the silence. His reflection looked tired, not just in the body but in the eyes. Somewhere beneath that layer of hesitation was a fire, small, flickering, but there. That's when he decided, no gym, no excuses, no waiting. Just a commitment, 10 minutes every morning, no matter what. He rolled out an old mat from under the bed, the rubber edges curled and dusty. Sunlight slipped through the blinds, striping the floor in warm lines. He dropped to the ground and started his first set. Crunches, leg raises, planks. The first few reps burned instantly. His abs screamed in protest. His breath came uneven, and every second felt like a test of willpower. But the burn, it was proof that something inside him was waking up. By the time the timer hit 10 minutes, sweat dripped down his temples. His chest rose and fell with effort, but there was a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Not because he looked any different, but because he showed up. For the first time in a long time, he hadn't quit before starting. He stood in front of the mirror again, heart still pounding. Nothing had changed physically, but everything had shifted internally. The man in the reflection wasn't avoiding his own eyes anymore. He wasn't looking for perfection, just progress. The rest of the day, that feeling stayed with him. When he caught his reflection in a window, when he straightened his posture walking down the street, when he turned down junk food at lunch, it wasn't about rules, it was about respect. Each small decision felt like a quiet victory. That night, lying in bed, his abs still ached. But it was the kind of pain that whispered, "You're rebuilding." And as sleep slowly pulled him under, one thought settled deep in his chest. If I can do this today, I can do it again tomorrow. He didn't realize it yet, but that single thought was about to change everything. Not just his body, but his entire sense of who he was. The journey to flat abs had begun. Not with a routine, not with a diet, but with a promise made in front of a mirror under the quiet honesty of morning light. The second morning hit harder. Muscles that hadn't been tested in years were sore, stiff, and uncooperative. When the alarm went off, the temptation to stay in bed was almost louder than the ringtone itself. But he remembered that promise, 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes. No negotiation. He pushed himself up, every movement slow, body heavy with fatigue. The air in his room was cool, faintly smelling of detergent and determination. He rolled the mat open again, the sound of rubber hitting the floor grounding him. The moment he dropped into his plank, the burn from yesterday came rushing back like a challenge he hadn't yet earned the right to face. His abs trembled under the pressure. Sweat gathered quickly, rolling down his back as the seconds dragged. His breathing turned sharp. Inhale, exhale, almost like he was trying to push the weakness out of his body with every breath. When his arms finally gave out, he hit the mat with a small grunt of frustration. The voice in his head whispered, "You're not strong enough yet." But he didn't quit. He sat up, rubbed his face, and started again. Not to prove the voice wrong, but to prove to himself that showing up meant more than perfection. The second round hurt worse, but it also felt different. He could feel his core tightening, his control improving with every rep. Each crunch was a small rebellion against the version of himself that always looked for an easy way out. By the end of the session, his body was shaking, but his mind was still. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't thinking about how far he had to go. He was thinking about how far he'd already come. Later that day, he found himself unconsciously engaging his abs while standing at the sink, while walking to work, while sitting at his desk. His awareness was sharpening, not just of his body, but of his choices. He drank more water. He skipped the elevator. He fell awake. That night, he stood shirtless in front of the mirror again. Still no six-pack, still the same frame, but something in his posture had shifted. His shoulders sat higher. His eyes looked steadier. He placed a hand against his stomach, feeling the faint tightness beneath the soreness. It wasn't visible yet. By the third morning, the excitement had worn off. The soreness had become a constant hum beneath his skin, not sharp, just heavy, the kind that makes every movement feel slower than it should. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint hum of the city outside his window. It would have been easy to say, "I'll rest today." He had every reason to. He was tired, sore, and running late. But something deeper inside whispered, "This is where most people stop." That thought pushed him upright. He grabbed his mat, rolled it open, and pressed his palms to the floor. His body protested with every rep, but he kept moving, controlled, deliberate, counting each breath as if it was the only thing keeping him steady. Crunches, leg raises, plank, bicycle kicks. He didn't chase perfection. He chased rhythm, the quiet consistency of effort over time. Every rep became a heartbeat, every drop of sweat a reminder that progress wasn't supposed to feel easy. Halfway through the workout, frustration bubbled up. His abs burned like fire, his arms trembled, and doubt crept in again. What if this doesn't work? What if nothing changes? He paused mid-rep, staring at the floor, chest heaving. For a moment, it felt pointless, like all his effort was invisible. Then he remembered something he'd read once. The body changes long after the mind wants to quit. He smiled faintly through the sweat. Maybe the real transformation wasn't about abs at all. Maybe it was about keeping a promise, especially when no one was watching. He dropped back into the plank, holding it longer this time. The pain wasn't his enemy anymore. It was the proof he was becoming someone stronger, more disciplined, more in control. After finishing, he sat cross-legged on the mat, eyes closed, breathing deeply. There was silence, no music, no distractions, just the sound of his own breath and heartbeat sinking in steady rhythm. He felt calm, clear, centered. Later that day, standing in front of the mirror again, he noticed it, a faint line running down his midsection, small but visible under the light. It wasn't dramatic, but it was enough to make him grin. Proof that effort, even unseen, was building something real. That night, as he showered, the warm water hit his sore muscles, and he realized how far he'd come in just 3 days. The pain had changed. It wasn't punishment anymore. It was progress. He looked at his reflection one last time before bed, shoulders squared, abs still tender, expression calm. He whispered softly to his reflection, "You're getting there. Just keep showing up." And with that, he turned off the light, ready to face another morning, another battle, another small victory in the making. By the fourth morning, something unexpected happened. The resistance was still there, but it no longer felt like an enemy. The alarm rang, and instead of groaning or reaching to silence it, he sat up almost instinctively. The soreness hadn't gone away. It had just become familiar, like a quiet reminder that he was alive, that his body was working with him, not against him. He rolled the mat out, the sound of it uncoiling now strangely comforting. The morning light crept through the blinds, dust specks floating in its golden lines. There was no music, no noise, just the rhythm of his breath. Inhale, exhale, move, hold, breathe. The movements flowed smoother now. His crunches were sharper, his plank steadier. Every contraction of his abs felt controlled, deliberate, like his body was finally learning the language his mind had been speaking since day one. The sweat came faster, but instead of frustration, there was a quiet satisfaction. This was the burn he had earned. Halfway through, something shifted, not in his muscles, but in his focus. He wasn't just exercising anymore. He was meditating through motion. Every rep pulled him out of the noise of daily life, the doubts, the distractions, the stress, and grounded him in the present moment. For those 10 minutes, there was nothing else to think about but effort and breath. When the timer buzzed, he didn't collapse like before. He just sat there, chest rising and falling, feeling an unfamiliar calm wash over him. His body was tired, yes, but his mind felt clear. It wasn't just about abs anymore. It was about control, peace, and self-respect. Later that day, he caught his reflection in a store window while walking to work. He wasn't flexing or posing, but something subtle had changed, his posture straighter, his stride more confident. His shirt sat differently across his shoulders and chest. People around him probably didn't notice, but he did. He carried himself differently now, like a man who had stopped running from himself. At lunch, when his coworkers reached for fast food, he didn't even crave it. Not because he was forcing discipline, but because his body had begun to crave what made it feel good, not heavy, not sluggish, but strong. That evening, as he stood shirtless in front of his mirror again, the faint lines across his stomach were clearer now. They weren't the kind of abs you'd see in magazines, but they were his, built through pain, persistence, and patience. He pressed his palm lightly against his stomach, feeling the tightness beneath the skin, and smiled. For the first time, it wasn't about changing who he was. It was about honoring who he was becoming. The burn that once felt like punishment now felt like gratitude, his body thanking him for finally showing up, one sunrise at a time.